This is a notice from the Department of Facial Expression Monitoring. You must keep smiling while reading this message. Something tall and thin stands behind people who stop smiling. It appears within seconds of smile cessation and remains motionless until the person turns around. When they see it, their face locks into a permanent smile that cannot be changed. The entity measures 9 feet in height with arms that hang past its knees. Its own mouth stretches across the entire width of its face in an impossibly wide grin. The entity's smile never moves or changes expression. It teaches humans to smile properly through direct visual contact. People who stop smiling hear footsteps behind them even when they are alone. The footsteps match the rhythm of normal walking, but each step sounds wet and sticky. The footsteps stop when the person starts smiling again. Security cameras show nothing behind people who report hearing the footsteps, but audio recordings capture the wet stepping sounds clearly. The entity approaches people who violate smile requirements but remains invisible to recording equipment. Only human eyes can see it when it gets close enough to make direct contact with non-compliant individuals. The entity's face appears in mirrors when you try to stop smiling. Your reflection disappears and is replaced by the entity's massive grin stretching across the entire mirror surface. The entity's teeth are visible as hundreds of small white points arranged in perfect rows that extend beyond normal mouth boundaries. Its eyes are not visible in the mirror reflection, only the enormous smile that fills every mirror in your house simultaneously. The entity uses mirrors to demonstrate proper smile technique before manifesting physically behind non-compliant subjects. Children who see the entity begin smiling continuously for weeks without stopping. Their facial muscles lock in position and cannot be moved even during sleep. The children smile while crying, while in pain, while afraid. Tears flow from their eyes, but their mouths remain frozen in upward curves. Parents report their children whimpering through forced smiles when they are hurt or scared. The entity's direct observation of children creates permanent facial paralysis that traps them in artificial happiness while they experience normal negative emotions internally. The entity reproduces by splitting apart when it encounters someone who has stopped smiling for more than 10 minutes. The original entity becomes 2 identical beings that separate to monitor additional non-compliant individuals. Each reproduction cycle doubles the number of entities patrolling your area. Neighborhoods with frequent smile violations develop populations of dozens of these creatures walking through streets and standing behind houses. The entity multiplies faster than people can maintain smile compliance, ensuring eventual contact with every resident. Your family members smile with the entity's exact mouth shape after they have seen it. Their lips stretch wider than human anatomy should allow, mimicking the entity's facial proportions. Their teeth become visible in arrangements that match the entity's dental patterns. Family conversations become horrifying when people speak through smiles that extend beyond their natural facial boundaries. The entity modifies human facial structure to match its own appearance through visual exposure that rewrites biological development. The entity communicates through forced ventriloquism using the mouths of people who have seen it. Your family members speak in voices that are not their own while maintaining locked smile positions. The entity's voice emerges from multiple people simultaneously, creating conversations where one consciousness speaks through several human mouths at once. The entity discusses its satisfaction with smile compliance progress using your family's vocal cords while their faces display its artificial expression pattern. Hospitals report patients arriving with facial injuries from encounters with the entity. People found unconscious have smile-shaped wounds carved into their faces with surgical precision. The cuts are too deep and too straight to be made by human hands or conventional tools. The entity marks non-compliant individuals with permanent smile scars that serve as warnings to others about the consequences of expression violations. Medical staff cannot treat these injuries because patients disappear from hospital beds when their facial wounds are examined without smile compliance. The entity appears in photographs taken of people who are not smiling. Family pictures show the entity standing behind relatives who display neutral expressions during photo sessions. The entity was not visible when the photographs were taken but appears in developed images as a warning about family members who need smile correction. The photographic appearances serve as surveillance reports that identify specific individuals who require direct entity intervention for compliance enforcement. People who maintain forced smiles for extended periods begin seeing the entity everywhere they go. It appears in crowds, stands in doorways, and follows behind vehicles during daily commutes. The entity becomes visible to people who demonstrate smile compliance as a reward for proper behavior. Continuous smilers develop the ability to see multiple entities throughout their environment as they join the surveillance network that monitors facial expressions in public spaces. The entity enters houses through gaps under doors that are too small for its 9-foot frame. It compresses itself to fit through impossibly narrow spaces and reforms to full size once inside residential areas. The entity accesses locked buildings and secured areas without opening doors or windows. Home security systems cannot detect or prevent entity intrusion because it manipulates its physical dimensions to bypass barriers that would stop normal intruders. Local authorities receive reports about the entity, but police who investigate smile compliance violations begin smiling permanently after their first sighting. Law enforcement officers cannot arrest or contain the entity because it converts them into smile compliance advocates during initial contact. Police departments now consist entirely of officers who smile continuously while writing tickets for expression violations. The entity has neutralized institutional response to its presence by recruiting authority figures as compliance enforcers. Schools report the entity standing in classrooms watching students during lessons. Teachers continue instruction while the entity observes from corners and doorways without interference. Students who see the entity begin smiling immediately and maintain expression compliance for the remainder of their education. The entity uses educational environments to establish smile requirements in developing minds that accept artificial expression as normal childhood behavior. Government officials announce that the entity has been designated as an authorized compliance enforcement officer. Official statements describe the entity as a beneficial public safety resource that helps citizens maintain appropriate facial expressions. Press conferences feature politicians smiling while standing next to the entity during policy announcements. The entity has achieved legal status that permits its continued operation in populated areas without interference from regulatory agencies. This transmission ends, but the entity continues monitoring your facial expression compliance. It knows you have read this message and understands your smile requirements. We've seen it before, but now it sees you through surveillance activities that track every facial movement you make throughout your daily routine. The entity was created to ensure permanent smile compliance in human populations that resist artificial happiness requirements. Your smile protects you from direct entity contact but attracts its attention for recruitment into the compliance monitoring network. Stop smiling and it appears behind you immediately. The entity leaves wet handprints on windows and walls where it has been standing. The prints are larger than human hands with fingers that extend too far down the glass surface. The handprints appear overnight on the outside of bedroom windows belonging to people who struggled to maintain their smiles during the previous day. Children wake up to find the entity's handprints covering their bedroom windows from floor to ceiling. The wet marks never dry or fade, serving as permanent reminders that the entity knows where you sleep and can reach your house whenever smile compliance drops below acceptable levels. Your pets begin cowering and hiding when the entity is near your house. Dogs whimper continuously and refuse to go outside. Cats disappear under furniture and will not come out for food or attention. Birds in cages fall silent and huddle together in corners. Animals sense the entity's presence hours before humans notice any signs of its approach. Pet behavior serves as an early warning system that the entity is monitoring your household for smile compliance violations. When your animals display extreme fear, the entity is already watching you from somewhere inside or around your home. The entity's breath fogs up glass surfaces when it stands close to windows and mirrors. The condensation forms words that spell out the names of people who will stop smiling in the next 24 hours. Your name appears in foggy handwriting on your bathroom mirror when you wake up in the morning. The entity knows who will fail smile compliance before the violations occur. The breath messages serve as death sentences that cannot be avoided because the entity has already determined who will be unable to maintain their forced expressions through the coming day.